Good evening, everybody, or should I say maybe good morning, good afternoon, whatever time you are listening to this. Welcome to the show, Conversations with Kenny. I'm your host, Kenny, and on the show today was special guest J. Robert Parker. Robert Parker is a Union Certified Hypnotherapist. He has a company called Twin Ravens Hypnotherapy and Research, and we had a really fun conversation today. We talked about hypnosis, hypnotherapy, psychology, and there towards the end of the episode, we even got into a little bit of card magic, talking about cards and some magic in general. And it was a lot of fun. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. If you guys get a chance, go check out his website. It's twinravens.org. And he's got a lot of cool things going on over there. And if you go to the links in the menu, you go to the links, there's a couple, suggestibility tests that you can take, and I've taken both. There's a hypnotic suggestibility test and there's a relationship test, and I took both of them. It's kind of neat to see what the results are, so if you want to check that out, it's twinravens.org, twinravens.org. So sit back, get a cup of coffee, get a cup of tea, whatever you like to do, and enjoy the show. This is Conversations with Kenny. How are you doing today, man? How's it going?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you very much for having me on, guys. Pleasure to be here.
It is an honor to have you on. I was listening to a couple of your appearances on other podcasts, and was really intrigued by the conversation, man. I was really drawn in, and that's kind of what I'd like to get into today. I know we talked about, doing cards and stuff, but
that's perfectly fine. I love what I do. Just to kind of give the fancy introduction for your audience as to who I am. My name is J. Robert Parker. I am a Union Certified Master Hypnotist with the Hypnotherapist Union Local 472, and I own a company called Twin Ravens Hypnotherapy and Research LLC. And as the name would suggest, I'm a hypnotherapist. So that's go ahead.
No, you go ahead. If you here, I was just going to ask you, what is that's where I think that's what would be a good starting point, is kind of what hypnosis is and what hypnotherapy is.
A lot of people are new to the concept of hypnotherapy. They think of it
Absolutely
as a joke that they play at office parties and stuff like that. My brother-in-law does hypnotherapy, and I wanted to be a believer, so I asked him, to do a session, and I tell you what, it is real and it's exciting.
Well, and that's
go ahead. I'm excited to hear some of your experience.
That's really why I do these interviews, because as you've seen, I do many interviews just talking about hypnosis and hypnotherapy, because there is such an amazing amount of misconception. Previous to me getting my education as a hypnotherapist, I had zero understanding of hypnosis or what it was or anything like that. I just kind of dived into the deep end, so to speak. And one of the things I really like to stress is it's not a thing that can be believed in. It's not a thing that it's like astrology or something like that you can and can't believe in it. This is science. The theta state of trance is a observable pattern in the human mind. And you had asked, like, what is hypnosis? And to give the the most blunt definition, it's the theta brainwave pattern. That says nothing, though. So kind of to explain what that is the mind has different wave patterns that exist naturally in it for different purposes. For example, we have the alpha pattern, which is relaxation. We have beta, which is attentiveness, delta, which is sleep. And there also exists a unusually high frequency pattern called theta. And theta shows up at interesting points in our brain. It shows up during meditation, trance, deep prayer, while we are engrossed in visual media, be it television or a book or whatever have you. And the purpose of this state is programming. It is when we are able to change our thoughts, beliefs, associations, patterns. It's our brain's natural programming state. And what hypnotherapy does is it takes this natural state and we use it to address associations, learned behaviors, which are really nothing but association through action. And we are able to change whatever these are. A good example is what's a food you don't like?
I'm gonna have to go with. I'm not a big fan of white rice.
Well, make yourself like it right now on the spot. Like it. Can you?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
so.
if you can, then you've
I'm
mastered
envisioning
part of your own mind.
a lot of butter on it.
Well, that's kind of an example of what I do. Is I create a desirable situation for somebody's subconscious to accept, which is exactly what you went to doing. It's interesting. I've asked that question many times. No one's legitimately answered it. So you get points for that.
I'm still thinking about it, to be honest with you.
but that's an example of it. Most times for most of our thoughts and behaviors, you cannot simply just change them by will, because the conscious and subconscious mind have a disconnect. There's a barrier between them that we refer to as the critical mind. And it is a barrier between your subconscious mind and the rest of the world. It's what filters in what your subconscious accepts or rejects. And during the trance state, that filter is not present. And you are actually naturally in this state a minimum of twice a day. And that's one of the things I really like to emphasize to people is 30 minutes before you go to sleep and 30 minutes after you wake up, you are naturally in the state of trance. Your critical filter has not yet gone up yet. And this is the reason for morning affirmations, for nightly affirmations, things like that. Is those are quite literally hypnotic suggestions that you give yourself. And it's very important. Like think back to the times that you've woken up in the morning just dreading your day, thinking about how crappy your day is going to be and how everything's going to suck. How'd your day go? It went pretty bad.
Right. Yeah, man. The law of attraction. I mean,
you predestined that.
Yeah, you predestined your.
Well, you mentioned the law of attraction. This is an interesting thing. There is a neuroscientific explanation for the law of attraction. Actually, entertainingly enough, it is something called your reticular activating system. And it is an actual function, a physical part of your brain. And it's obviously something I talk about so much that I have it called up on my my thing. But go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, that's interesting. And one of the things I was thinking about is the link between kind of like more spiritual side of hypnotherapy and more of the scientific side. Are there opposite ends of the spectrum for that? Or is it kind of one and the same? You know what I mean? If that question, I don't know if that question makes sense or not, but
it is more, but I mean, a couple of things. Belief integrates into hypnotherapy quite a bit. And where it really integrates is whatever you believe. If you are a Christian, I will use the lens that you understand to discuss spiritual concepts. If you are Sikh, I will use the concepts that speak to you. Most religion is just a lens that we choose to view phenomenal concepts. And where that go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just was going to say, I think from the spiritual side, I mean more of like self-discovery, is through hypnosis, able to rediscover ourselves and
absolutely,
and grow Is
Oh,
that
that's, I mean, no matter what your spiritual beliefs are, we can all agree that whatever is beyond us exists in our mind somewhere. And I have had clients talk about deep spiritual connections that they feel during hypnosis, uh, in those natural trance states in the morning. Those are the times I've felt the most connection to things. That in order to understand anything that is beyond what we can see, we have to eliminate our conscious mind. Your conscious mind exists for the purposes of logic, willpower, decision making, and a couple of other things that involve being in the present moment. When we're talking about understanding concepts beyond what we can really comprehend, the subconscious is the only part of our mind capable of doing that. And you mentioned an interest in past life regression. That's one of the most fascinating things that I do in my work. And it leads to some very interesting existential questions on the part of the client sometimes. Because the first question that is almost always asked after the session is, um, was what I saw real? And my question that I've kind of come to ask to that is, what is reality? You experienced it, you perceived it, it is a memory in your mind now. That's real. Just because I did not perceive it. Are you asking if it's accurate? Are you asking if you really perceived Roman times or whatever have you? I do not know. There is research being done into that to see kind of like, is there any accuracy to that? But that's the difference between getting paid and paying someone to do it. So, uh, and in being a research organization, because as I said, I'm hypnotherapy and research. I'm in the process of going through all of the red tape to be able to receive government grants to do research with hypnotherapy. And that is one of the areas that I would like to focus on because it's fascinating to me.
I
Because
think
go ahead.
the past life regression, I feel is very important because all those unresolved uh, physical, mental, and emotional traumas from previous lifetimes carry over into this one, and it actually is what a lot of our aches and pains and sicknesses are in this lifetime.
Well, I have never failed to have someone tell me that the experiences they had during a past life regression session were profound. And whatever it is that you're seeing, because I can't confirm whether or not you're actually seeing something, because if there's anything I've really come to struggle with since becoming a hypnotherapist, it's what even is reality? Well, reality is so strictly based upon perception, upon preconceived notions. I speak of this particular activating system, and what its main function is to put people, places, and things within your perception to that are aligned with whatever goal you want. And that's why people call it the law of attraction. They think it's metaphysical because you didn't notice something before and now you do, and it's forwarded your goals. That's simply changing a physical part of your brain. By calling it metaphysical, by calling it the law of attraction, you are uh, being reductive of the power of your own mind, the incredibly complex device that is your mind. It's not an outside force, it's all in here. And that's really what I emphasize with a lot of hypnosis. It's all your mind. Hypnosis is not a superpower. It's not something I give to you. This is something that exists in you. I am a guide. I am there to be able to show you how to turn on this part of your mind and guide that process whenever we have initiated that state. Other than that, it's all you. I'm not, and like I said, it's not a gift of anything. all of these states, all of these incredible things that hypnotherapy has been shown to be able to achieve, that's you, and that's it. And that's the fascinating thing to me, is how with the power of your own mind can you increase your bone density? How can you decrease blood flow to surgical sites? How can you do all of these amazing things that medical and scientific research has pointed to hypnosis being capable of? Because I am all about the not the theory of it. I'm all about what can this do? What has this done? What has the research posited? And the research out there is fascinating, and it's not an outside thing. It's not a superpower. It is just the function of the mind. And we attempt to give metaphysical attribution many times to something that is simply just the power of our own mind. Like, and we going back to this reticular activating system, because it is so much. It is what we perceive and what your reality consists of. And an extreme example of this, and how far this goes, is sometime in, I believe, the late 80s or early 90s, there was a incident in Japan that a passenger liner had to make an emergency landing on a freeway, and about a dozen people ran right into it. And whenever they were questioned later, why'd you run into the big white jumbo jet in the middle of the freeway? They didn't see it. None of them saw it, because where in the expectations of your reality does there is a plane on the road in front of me come into play? And so much so that if that is not within your script of reality, you just won't see it, even if it's right in front of you. And I can actually display this with hypnosis through something called negative hallucination, that you can, in a fairly light state of trance, cause someone to not see something that is directly in front of them. And that is simply by a temporary alteration of that reticular system. What do you expect of your reality? If your reality does not expect to see a pen on the table in front of you, it simply won't be there.
That is freaking crazy.
Yeah, I've seen demonstrations where
Mhm.
a father and son are taken on stage, and the father goes under and is suggested that his son isn't there, and on the count of whatever, in the snap of the finger, the father was standing on stage, and his little infant son was trying to get his dad's attention and couldn't see him. So yeah, you can. I've seen some interesting demonstrations.
And that makes me think of like MK Ultra stuff almost, you know what I mean? Which makes me kind of wonder, you know, how far back does hypnosis go and like the discovery of it? And is it like before the Cold War? I mean, have they been using hypnosis? Have people been practicing hypnotherapy for a long time? Or is this more of like a recent
modern times?
Yeah, modern time discovery.
I'm about to send you on a rabbit hole.
All right. Is your audio good,
Yeah,
Nick?
yep.
Okay, it's not too loud.
So, where to start with that? Okay. So
I know
yeah,
that's a loaded question.
Yeah. No, it's not at all. So there was a man named Edward Bernays who was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, who created the entire agency of public relations, and called it so because propaganda was already taken by the Nazis. And for roughly the past 100 years, the marketing and advertising and whatever other institutions which utilize these processes have been using the concepts of Freudian psychotherapy and psychoanalysis, the subconscious, basically, to guide thought, for all intents. That would be the best way to put it, to guide popular thought. So, and that's one of the things that I really talk about with my clients, and because this was all things that I noticed before I knew who Bernays was. I started seeing these techniques that I had been taught on the news and advertising out of politicians' mouths. And I'm like, that's the law of repetition. That's the law of reverse association. Like, I started noticing these things. And I had a discussion with a much more experienced peer of mine, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you need to look into Edward Bernays. That's you've just stumbled upon that, and that's all that is." And so I highly recommend. It's a 4-hour documentary. It's dense as hell, but
Where
it's
can you
called
now?
this.
Where can you find that on YouTube or?
Yes, on YouTube. It's called The Century of Self,
I want to write
and
it down real quick.
it is all about what has been done to manipulate through this concept of subconscious association the population. And this isn't wild conspiracy theory. This is the intent of, and they have interviews in the documentary with Bernays as an old man, and like all of these things that he's done to manipulate popular thought are there, present, and it continues to be done to this day. um
That's the thing. That's one of the things, man, is you said earlier, what is reality? And that question has been burning in my mind for a long time. Also is like, what is truth? You know, I was on a journey. I'm still am on a journey, but you know, like the question has been in my mind, like, what is truth? And like you said, it's kind of based on everybody's opinion and views and how they were brought up as kids and, you know, emotional traumas, and the list goes on and on.
Well, are we talking capital T truth or lowercase t truth?
I didn't know there was two, you know,
Like, it's,
but
I mean,
probably
it's,
both, I would say.
well,
'Cause,
this is, have you ever heard of Discordianism?
no, I can't say that.
It's this wacky fringe religion based upon the worship of the goddess of discord, Eris. And they talk about capital T truth and little t truth. And capital T truths are universal truths, that which you can't really even dispute. That, and the lowercase t truths are the observational truths, that what your perception tells you is true. And the trick is knowing the difference between the two, knowing what's the big T truth, what's the little t truth, like what is a universal reality and what is simply perception.
Interesting.
And it's a lot times more than you want it to believe to be perception.
I believe that, you know, I do,
Well,
man. I swear though, like on, you know, going back to that, like sometimes I swear it's nothing but word magicians all over TV. Yeah. Everything you see, I feel like is word magicians.
That's absolutely, that's part of the Bernays thing. So kind of to, because you asked how far back hypnosis goes.
Right.
And the interesting fact is it could be recent or it could be simply a part of what it means to be human, is to utilize this process. But as far back as us acknowledging it as a thing, it can be traced back to a man in the 1700s named Franz Mesmer. Mesmerism. I'm sure you've heard the term.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
And
interesting.
History regards Mesmer poorly. They regard him as a charlatan. I don't, because here's the thing. Mesmer had this concept that he called animal magnetism, which he thought was some magical thing having to do with magnets in the blood, blah, blah, blah. And we come to find out later he was using hypnosis to affect positive change in his clients, because Mesmer was rich. He got results.
Right.
So is he a charlatan because he didn't know what he was doing, even though he was getting the exact results he claimed to be able to achieve? Does that still make you a charlatan, even though you provide exactly what you promised, just because you don't understand what's happening? Ben Franklin was actually the one that kind of debunked him and caused him to fall out of fame.
Interesting.
And so kind of fast forward to the 1800s, the mid 1800s, there's a man named Dr. Braid, who is the man who was first credited with coining the term hypnosis, uh, because we just thought it was a type of sleep before and all of this stuff. And the man responsible for contributing to hypnosis and its kind of bad reputation is a name I've already mentioned, Sigmund Freud, because he was all about the subconscious, but he created and if there's anyone listening right now that actually likes Freud, I'm not going to apologize. Screw you, get a better mentor. But Freud, psychoanalysis, he regarded as too expensive and too lengthy for the majority of the population, and that there had to be a shortcut to do this, to do that kind of work. And guess what the shortcut he found was? Hypnotherapy. And so he did everything in his power to be sure that hypnosis was not regarded as a valid tool, because it completely annihilated Freudian psychoanalysis. Like, in terms of how long things take, psychoanalysis takes hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of sessions before you see results. And that's way too much money and time,
Right.
than most people have access to. There's an interesting statistic that one of my much more educated than myself peers sent me. And that's that traditional psychoanalysis, after 600 sessions, 33% of recipients reported positive change. And cognitive behavioral therapy, after 16 sessions, I believe it was 85% of people reported positive change. And hypnotherapy, after 6 sessions, 96% of people reported positive change.
No kidding.
Yeah. And honestly, speaking for personally, the fact that it's made me into the person I am today, that I have this very positive mindset. I spent most of my life as a very negative, very angry person, and the revelations that I've come to through using hypnosis and hypnotherapy and gaining the education and experience I have completely changed me. And if there's anything I can really say, is if hypnosis is capable of changing my stubborn ass, it can work for anybody, because I thought that's simply the way I was. I was just going to be the angry old man, and it's completely changed my perspective of myself, of the world around me, of everything.
So how did you get on this path then? When did you realize this is what I want to do? This is what I want to pursue,
So this is the weird part of the story. So I'm relatively recent in that previous to the pandemic, I had just moved states, kind of uprooted and moved out in the country, and was working as a chef at a resort. I had previously been a tattoo artist for 13, 14 years, I believe, and just decided that I wanted to change, moved on. And I was doing that. It's actually how I met my girlfriend, who we've been together for like 2.5 years now at this point.
Nice.
Yeah. And previous to that, my longest relationship was under a year. So that really kind of speaks to the change in mindset. And as we know, some stuff happened with the world, and the restaurant industry got nailed pretty hard. And I had been paying attention to it for quite a while and kind of knew what was coming and had seen the writing on the wall and had made some preparations for it. And the inevitable happened. And I had to figure out, like, what do we do? How do we make a living now that there's no livings to be made?
Right.
And I kind of had to reach into my bag of tricks, because I am an accumulation of random talents. You met me with talking about card magic. That's just one of the random talents that I picked up.
That's awesome, man. I love that.
Yeah. And it's so basically I started reading tarot cards professionally for a living. And that worked out to be a very good income. I was making much more money than I could anywhere locally, much
Really?
more money than I had. Oh yeah. And I found that what I was doing was less like reading people's fortunes, so to speak, and which fortune telling is what got me into card magic to begin with, because the first method I learned was playing cards. And so I had already had a lot of experience playing with cards. And I was like, why not? Let's learn this new fun way to do it. And I eventually moved on to tarot and a bunch of other ways. And I got good enough that I could charge for that service. And so I discovered that I wasn't, as I said, reading people's fortunes. I was more using the psychological archetypes of the tarot cards to reframe people's problems to them. And in doing so, I was actually able to legitimately help quite a few people. Like I was having people pay money to call me back just to thank me that I had helped them understand whatever this issue was. And I wasn't trying to tell the future or anything like that. I was striving to, through these cards, to give them an understanding of what was happening. And that really helped people. And I thought to myself, how do I just do this? How do I just help people? And of course, I couldn't go the route of just being a counselor or a therapist or something like that. I had to pick something completely wild. And I was on Facebook one day, and the algorithm put in front of me, blessed be its name, a hypnotherapy college accredited by the Department of Education. And I had zero experience with hypnosis before. I never even really got into mentalism. Like I tried it a little bit and I was like, too unpredictable. Like I like the cards. I like knowing the answer before anything even happens. And I I eventually spoke to them. I figured give them a chance, talk to them. And they're like, I tell you what, we'll give you the 101 portion for free. Come in for the first month and just see what we've got going on. See if it speaks to you. And I think I went to about 2 classes before my mind was just completely blown, because I come from somewhat of a medical background. I was trained as EMS. So I understand certain parts about reaction and physiology and things like that. And the first time I saw someone legitimately get hypnotized, I noticed reactionary things in them that are not possible consciously, ways the eyes and arms moved that you cannot consciously mimic that movement. That was reactionary movement. And so I began to kind of, because I had no experience, as I said, with hypnosis before. I just went in with an open mind.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you think you were put in a hypnotic state when you first walked through the door, which kind of led you on the path to become a hypnotherapist?
No, because it was all remote. Everything by this point, everything was already switched over to the industry as a whole. Even had switched over to fully remote. To this day, I still work fully remote. This, as you see it, is my office, and that's kind of one of the fascinating things. Is this doesn't have to be in person.
Right.
All you need is a voice, and that's really it. And there's plenty of things that can be taken from that, and possibly should be, because again, this utilization of these ideas is absolutely used against your will. The a prime example of this is, what do you think about if I told you to visualize a yellow M on a red background?
Yellow M on a red background. I got almost, and this is going to sound weird, but something like a stop
McDonald's?
sign. No, I was going to say McDonald's stop sign, but
oh well,
I know it's not even close.
Well, most people would associate that with McDonald's, or if you see the check mark, or name your brand of choice.
Right.
because all logos is a form of sigillary, which is a form of association. And that when people see that logo, they think of what that company wants you to think about, because they have manipulated your association to associate that indecipherable symbol with their brand, their product. And that is nothing but a post-hypnotic suggestion. That, and this, one of the things, because of course anyone listening right now is hearing all of these things, and they'll start going into the, oh my god, the whole world is an MK Ultra experiment and there's nothing I can do about it. That's not true, because an interesting thing happens when you start working with hypnosis and hypnotherapy and a familiarization with your mind and your thoughts and the way those work. You start noticing those things, and when you notice those things, they don't work. And that by learning, and I think this is why hypnosis is given such a bad rap in popular media, is I believe they don't want the greater population to take it seriously. Because to actually take it seriously and to learn what it really is, and to get the effects of what it does to your perception, to your mind, to your way of thinking, it makes it more difficult for those principles to be used against you. The even now, I'll see an advertisement or I'll hear a politician talk, and I'll be like, I know what you just did. I know what you're doing. uh
Yeah,
a
man.
prime
That's
a
what it
prime
seems
example
like. Yeah.
is and I don't want to make it political, but a prime example is our last president. For however poorly he spoke, he sure repeated words a lot. He repeated words and phrases constantly, to the point that he changed the vernacular of an entire nation simply by repetition. That's a hypnotic law. The law of repetition is one of the first things they teach you.
Three, correct?
It's more than that. It's constant. Like they're told, what we're taught, if there is a suggestion you're trying to make through repetition, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, put that in there as much as possible. And
well, we see it on the news with the current COVID stuff. Same simple concepts are repeated
just, yeah,
over
this
and over.
small phrases, like words, phrases,
Safe and effective.
yeah,
a good one.
exactly. And
safe and effective,
and corporations do this with slogans, with taglines. It's what they want you to think. And in that documentary that I told you about, that Century of Self, one of the things they talk about is advertising, because on its face, Bernays was primarily about advertising. It ended up going much further than that. But previous to him, products were sold with utility. They were sold as, you need this because it does X better than Y. It is an improvement over what you already have or don't have. It will make this easier. Practicality. And after he came in, he changed that. And now things are sold to us with emotion. You'll feel this way if you use our product. That's why whenever they advertise alcohol, they don't advertise alcohol. They advertise women in bikinis.
Yeah,
and
having a good time. Yeah.
A feeling. And it's everything. Look at a car commercial. Tell me a single thing about any car that they advertise, a signal technical specifications. How big's that thing's engine? Like, what type of transmission does it have?
Yeah,
I don't know, because they just showed me whatever weird celebrity of the time driving around in that thing being pseudo philosophical.
yeah. Show me how to take the freaking oil filter out.
Yeah,
like
it has modern advertising, and you can, as you watch advertising, you can notice this, that it never has to do with the practicality of a product. It's the feeling, the emotion, the association.
It's like that. The same as another good one is that what's that pet one where they play the In the Arms of an Angel, you know, and they,
yeah, yes,
the animal cruelty.
and
you know,
exactly to create such an emotional reaction
exactly that you're
you
almost
feel
forced to.
obligated to do something. I feel so much pain for this. How can I not do something?
You're
And that
right.
is nothing but manipulation. And it's and I teach sales. I teach a lot of classes as well as one-on-one stuff. I do group sessions, I teach classes, and I even teach it's to sales classes. There's an 8-week course I have on sales. And one of the things I teach about is this thing with Bernays. It's worked up until this time, but as you can see, it's starting to not work anymore. And I talk about these old advertising practices of how practicality used to be sold. People don't want to be sold emotion anymore because no one trusts any of that anymore. We're starting to realize that all of advertising and things like that is complete horse crap.
And
Go ahead.
Continue, please.
One of the things I teach about with that is there's this idea that all sales have to be high pressure. And there's an interesting thing with this system that I was taught, that there's about 30% of the population that the second you are loud or direct or confrontational with them, you've lost a sale. You've lost their perception completely. And it doesn't matter if you're going to sell them something that will save their life. The second you came at them like that, completely turned them off. And I'm one of those people.
Right.
And so kind of talk about this a little bit, because this is like the primary thing that I discuss with my clients, and possibly the best thing I feel that my school taught me, because my program was 720 hours. That was more than just hypnosis. Hypnosis and trance, that's easy. I can teach someone how to do that in a day. It's simple. But what do you do with that? And that's what those other 719 hours were about, is what do you do with that? And one of the things they talk about is this thing called the Enp System of Suggestibility. And EMP stands for emotional and physical. And it's this spectrum that we all kind of land on. And basically, on its face, for my purposes, this determines the language that I need to use to be able to speak to you in hypnosis, the way I need to be able to couch your suggestions. And on a greater level, this system will speak to your needs, your desires, the way you interact within relationships, all manner of everything in life. And a good example of this is so the physicals. Those are people that are, I guess you'd call them classical extroverts. They're the people that need social interaction, that recharge their battery, so to speak, with social interaction. And in terms of their hierarchy of needs, these are people that tend to value their relationships more than anything else. If you've ever heard of somebody who didn't really do anything until they got married and now all of a sudden they're wildly successful, that was a physical, because they needed the security of the relationship before they could move on professionally. And in terms of hypnosis and communication, because really ultimately when we're talking about hypnosis, we're talking about communication. These are people you must speak to directly, literally. You cannot use metaphor or dance around a subject. You must tell them specifically and directly. But there are people that will speak indirectly. And on the other side, there is what I am, which is an emotional, very high emotional. And these are people that are anything but emotional, is interestingly enough. They are the logic minded. They are the people that will value their career more than anything else. That to actually attain any type of happiness, they must be stable financially, socially. They have to have stability before they can pursue anything else. And for the purposes of hypnosis, These are people you need to use metaphor with to speak to indirectly. It's effectively the difference between your eyes are getting heavy, or you may begin to feel your eyes getting heavier as if there's weights attached to your eyelids. And it's the way we accept communication, and to be direct with an emotional, to tell an emotional to do something. You've lost them. An emotional has to think it is their choice, it is their idea, it is their decision at the very least.
That's me, dude.
Yep.
You know, I'm
And
an
the way
Aquarius, and
same.
oh, are you awesome,
Yeah.
dude? Awesome, and yeah, dude, that's definitely me. You know,
Well,
somebody can tell. I could be thinking about doing something, and the moment somebody tells me to do it, I don't want to do it. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep. And the way you give these people suggestions is with choices. If you say you want more motivation, and hypnosis, you would say something like, every morning you have the choice. You have the choice to get up and to choose to forward your life, or to choose to not to stay where you are. And every morning you have this choice to make. And whatever choice you choose is up to you. And you basically have posited a situation where one choice is obviously more beneficial than the other. And it's actually a principle used in magic quite a bit. You can call it a Hobson's choice, where it's reducing the number of choices or guiding what someone's decision is. One of my favorite tricks, you don't even need a deck of cards in your hand to do. You can do it completely over the phone, or I guess you technically couldn't, but like, it's just guiding choices.
And
And go ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off, but man, that really makes me think about, and maybe some of the audience out there is thinking about, is the, I guess you can call it law of free will. You know, what about free will? You know, if you start to wake up and believe, I guess, that there's hypnotic messages in commercials, and, you know, like you said, the power of association through symbolism, which I see a lot of, dude. I see a lot of symbolism.
It's everywhere.
You know, how does that tie in with free will? And, you know, for somebody just waking up to kind of avoid that black pill, you know, that the whole world's being controlled.
Well,
we're all doomed, you know.
it's funny because this is something I speak about a lot, this exact concept. And it's an interesting notion of, as I said, if everything about us is association and learned behavior, where does free will come into play in that? It really doesn't. Well, if you were to choose to change that, to act a way counter to your programming, to accept a belief counter to your programming based upon your personal desires, isn't that free will? Isn't choosing the way you want to think, choosing the way you want to believe, isn't that free will? That's what hypnotherapy is. And so by utilizing hypnosis, by utilizing your subconscious, that is the expression of free will, because that is what allows you to see these things in everyday life that influence your thoughts and behaviors. And once you see something, the thing I tell my clients is, it's all a game, that there's this game being played and you don't even know it's being played. And if you don't know a game's being played and you don't know the rules, you'll never go anywhere at it. You'll always get beaten. That once you know the rules to a game, once you know the way things work, then you're able to recognize it and resist it. And like I said, all hypnosis is communication. All human communication is based upon the principles that I use in hypnosis. And it's simply a part of being human, to be influenced, to be suggestible, to be attracted to signs and symbols and all of these things. That it's simply part of who we are. And while we have come to a point in society that these principles are being used against us in day-to-day life, you can take control over them. You can use them for your own benefit, to be able to simultaneously resist those constant influences around you, and to be able to positively move forward, which is really all anyone wants to do.
That is true, man. That's people just want to move forward, at least me, and also kind of just enjoy the present. This is kind of how I've grounded myself through kind of realizing that there's so much manipulation and word magicians, everything that
I've become very big on the little things, in the present. Like, and that's what I really try to stress with my clients and anyone, my group clients, my lectures, my anything, is this idea of taking pleasure from your life. And one of the big things that I really talk about is it utilizes this idea of we're in trance for the first 30 minutes after we wake up. Well, take pleasure in your morning ritual. If you drink coffee, take pleasure in the individual aspects of that. Use each aspect as a positive reinforcement, and they become an anchor. They become a post-hypnotic suggestion. When the sound of coffee being scooped, when the smell of coffee being brewed, when washing your cup all becomes part of this greater ritual with positive associations, you have a better day. And it's just how it is.
like a morning
That's
meditation,
simple psychology. Yeah, basically.
And
And
dude,
people think meditation. Well, go ahead.
I don't know about you, Nick, but I need to change up my freaking morning routine because it is not pretty, man. I'll tell you what.
Well, that's really a big thing you should focus
I
on.
know, man. I tell you what, I wake up in the morning and I hit the snooze button like 3 times, roll out of bed. I might look at my phone for 5 minutes, like before I even get out of bed, which I think I feel it's a really bad habit that I need to stop.
Same.
But then it's like usually stumble downstairs and race out the door,
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, man.
Don't do that. It's you have to take time. Even if you're just laying in bed, even if for those 30 minutes it's just you laying there in bed, letting your thoughts wander. That's the time you take to give yourself that positive reinforcement, to direct your thoughts for the day. And it doesn't matter if you get up and you make coffee and get all these things ready, or if you just lay there. It's very important that we not kind of just go in the morning, because that's part of this influence that I've spoken about. Because think about it, if your society encourages everyone to be up and out of the door within 10 minutes of getting up, then they're going to watch the news or listen to the news on their radio and be suggestible to anything and everything that you want them to hear.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. I've turned the freaking news off. I on the way to work, I'll usually listen to podcasts. I like to listen to podcasts in the morning, and one I go to a lot is Tinfoil Hat with Sam Tripoli. That's like one of my go-tos, and I have other ones I listen to as well. Yours, I listened to like 3 times on the Steinfeld Talks episode. I listened to that like 3 times.
That was a fun one. Steinfeld was a fun interview. That was the first interview I did that the guy actually asked me like difficult questions, like philosophical questions that actually made me think about. And like I even told him after the fact, like I really appreciated that. That was a good interview. So
it really was. I loved it. And I tried to pull some questions, that I thought of while listening to that. And I think we already covered quite a few of them actually, but I definitely want to ask you your thoughts on technology, building algorithms, kind of where technology's headed, and how you think that ties in with hypnosis, and just kind of your thoughts around all of that.
There's actually one of the things I'm wanting to get a grant on is doing research with virtual or augmented reality as a tool to use with hypnotherapy. And kind of my thought is, as a basic example, let's say if someone's afraid of heights, well, I can, within that virtual space, work with you hypnotically and then actually expose you to those heights while I'm still working with you hypnotically, to be able to actively on the spot be able to reduce that fear and eliminate it real time. Not just we'll see if this works next time, but actually get verifiable proof that you no longer have this fear because you see it, because you have now experienced it, and you don't have this same fear. And
I'm picturing you like skydiving with clients or something.
Yeah.
Man. Like,
I mean, really, ultimately, whatever you want.
That's awesome.
Like,
that's awesome.
If you're afraid of spiders, let's load up a simulation and kill some spiders while I talk you through this process.
Right. Yeah.
While I talk you through hypnotically altering these associations and actively conquering this fear. Because hypnosis is so much more than just laying there with your eyes closed. Like, you can be influenced with eyes open. You can be put in the trance state with eyes open, actively experiencing things. And that's kind of the positive aspect to it. Now the negative,
man, her freaking breath stinks, don't it? I got a dog under my desk just chewing on her own.
Yeah, that happens.
Oh man.
I mean, it has to be remembered that Facebook itself was created with psychological manipulation in mind. That little like button alone,
dude.
Like, they've even admitted to it. People that helped develop the platform have freely admitted that it was made as basically a dopamine system.
Right.
Clicking that like button is just that little dopamine kick.
Yeah, dude.
And so it's an active manipulation. And I have to use social media because of my job. Mm-hmm. And honestly, if you go to my personal Facebook account, it's just memes and like bizarrely motivational stuff.
I know, and I was looking at that stuff and I was like, all right, this is a cool dude. Yeah. I mean,
and like it's made me into an odd person. I feel like that. But like
and dude, that's one of them things. Like, Facebook is, I know that it's corrupt and that's, like you said, it's a psychological operation, but I'm kind of on the fence with it. Like, that's how to get to people. That's how you communicate with people. And unfortunately, a lot of the ways we communicate with one another are all controlled by, few entities. But, I think that's one of the ways of kind of
using their system against them.
Yeah, using their system against them, for sure.
Absolutely. And it's a trick for sure, because we're every moment from this step forward for quite a few moments now, for the past 20 years more, we have no idea what we're doing. We are so far past where our ancestors have been, and we are so far into our own development that it's kind of freaky. And one of the things that I think about a lot is there's this concept of exponential evolution with humanity, where it's like from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age was like 10,000 years or something like that. Or it was the Stone Age to the Bronze Age. It was like 10,000 years. And from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age, like 5,000. Fucking every time it's halved. And then finally we get to now, and like from the Renaissance, like the Industrial Revolution was like 200 years. And then now we've reached the point that the computer age started 20 years ago. And now we're just exponentially adding to these progressive ages. And there's this concept called the singularity, which there's two singularities. There's the robot singularity and the human singularity. The human singularity is where that exponential growth reaches its 0 point, that human development and evolution becomes unable to be tracked, that it's daily. And there's a consensus as to what year this is supposed to happen. And it is somewhere between the year 2045 and 2050. We are supposed to hit the singularity. And that basically is where we either annihilate ourselves or where we become everything we wish we were. And that's an interesting, it's somewhat intimidating concept. And
it is, man. And that makes me think of like 5D dimension stuff, because I'm more on like, not the black pill side. I try to look at the positive and, on the star seed side of things. And, I think we are collectively as a whole working towards a future where,
it's not the collective that really becomes a problem. It's that really, really, really tiny minority that runs things that begins to be the problem.
I agree.
And I read some statistic the other day that blew my mind, that if you live on more than $30 a day, I think it was, you are in the top 15% of the world in terms of wealth. That was kind of stunning to me,
That is.
that what we consider poverty for all intents, you are in the 15% of the wealthiest in the world. And it's I think about that a lot. I look at what I have a lot in like my house and all of that, and I think that like to the majority of the world, not just to a section of the world, to the overwhelming majority of the world, I'm wealthy. I'm not just wealthy, I'm rich beyond measure. I have flowing water in my house. I have stored food. Like I'm very big on watching like documentaries on other places in the world because I like to know like what's going on everywhere, good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I see these places where like the governor of some place lives in like a steel shack and like drives a broken down car, and he's
Right.
considered wealthy beyond measure. And it really makes me look at what I have differently, because we're encouraged this mentality of dissatisfaction in this country, to always want more, to strive for more, to have more. Like, but why? But does it, when has buying a new cell phone ever made you happier for more than a day? Like, when has something that by the means of society said that you need ever made you happy? And it's something that I've really thought about a lot. Like, I'm not very big on holidays, but there's some part of me that's come to like Christmas, and not as like a religious thing, just because we all have some form of Christmas, no matter what the religion is. We all have our end of year celebration where we give gifts to each other, and it's a festival of lights. It's everyone, it's
Yeah,
everywhere.
for sure.
And like even the holiday itself was co-opted. So, good times. But I we all thought of Christmas differently as a kid. It felt different. Like, and I missed that a lot, because like one of the things that working with hypnosis has really done for me is it's made me really nostalgic, because I think nostalgia and hypnosis kind of run within the same field. And I was thinking to myself, because it's really, anyone that lives anywhere can look around that's lived like a few decades now at this point and see that it's just different now, that time of year, than it used to
100%.
be. And I was thinking to myself, what do I do to give back to that, to get back to that feeling? And for years, what were we told that Christmas was about? It was about giving, it was about charity. And I I live in a town of 1,000 people, like a tiny, tiny little place. So everyone knows everybody and is all up in their business. And there was a guy this Christmas who, he's kind of one of the poor redneck folks around here, has nothing really, but he spent what nothing he had to have like 15 or 20 people over to his place and feed them. And the town almost as a whole looked down on him for it, looked at that as a terrible way to spend his money. And all that did was made me think, because I was like, that is one of the coolest things I've heard in a long time. And what I can do, what we can do, like, because I remember when I was a kid, it didn't matter what you believed, who you were. People kind of stopped being shitty at Christmas. People were happier. People would smile and be nice. And that was not how it is anymore. And I'm very big on the what can you do, because you have to have something you can do to be able to make progress towards a problem. And I know this, it's I'm focusing on Christmas, but this really speaks to everything. And Do you know who Terry Pratchett is? The writer guy did Discworld. Okay.
I do. No.
He co-wrote Bad Omens. That'd be the closest thing, or Good Omens. Um, he has a quote, and I keep this around. Let me see if I can find it real fast. But it's because I really wondered to myself, like, what can you even do? How do you not just take the black pill? And it says, thematically speaking, the most important thing Terry Pratchett taught me was the concept of militant decency. The idea that you can look at the world and its flaws and its injustices and its cruelties and get deeply, intensely angry, and that you can turn that into energy for doing the right thing and making the world a better place. He taught me that anger in itself is not the part I should be fighting. And that's really one of the things I talk to a lot of my clients about. Because the world's a weird place right now. And I know this is a little tangential on the Christmas thing, but that's kind of where it's all leading to anyway.
No, that's okay.
And
the first thing I thought of when you said that is, using that anger to kind of do good, make the right choice. And the first thing I thought of was like, in local towns around here, we have they're like boxes that have you put extra perishable foods in, things like that for people in need. And doing something like building more of those, or contributing to those is, I think, a good example of redirecting some of that anger.
Yeah. Well, and what I tell people to do is because I had to think of what's something small that everyone can do that doesn't matter about money or anything like that. What can every single person do? And I came up with something pretty simple, and that's make the effort every single day to be nice to one person, just one. That's it. And go out of your way to compliment a stranger, to uplift somebody, something, just some small act of kindness, one thing every day. And think back to the times in your life that a stranger has been kind to you for no reason, that it sticks with you, and you carry that throughout your day because it feels good to be uplifted by someone you don't even know. They don't even know you, but they still extended that kindness. It inspires you to do that in others. And on that same token, if someone's a dick to you, it kind of makes you want to inspire that same thing in others. And that's what we want to get away from.
Right. For sure.
And that's it. That's all we have to do to make our community and our world a better place. It's just be a little nicer. And if you are able to actively take part in changing your community, screw what the national government is, what the state government is. That has zero to do with you. Focus on your community, your neighborhood, your neighbor, however small it has to be where you are, and just work on improving that small part. And if we all just focused on what was in front of us, the world would be better. And I'm very big on Stoic philosophy. This man named Marcus Aurelius, and he was a Roman emperor like 1600 years ago. That's actually one of his coins to keep behind me.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, and the Stoic philosophy, it speaks a lot to dignity, to the way that you hold yourself, to maintaining mental calm. And one of the things that he says that if you cannot affect change upon something right now, don't worry about it. That unless you can personally change it, you cannot give it the headspace to worry about it. And that's really something that everyone needs to consider, because people talk about all of these things on like, oh, on the national level, or oh, my governor, this. And I'm like, what can you do about it? What can you do about it besides struggle with it? Nothing.
Yeah, dude. And I completely agree, dude, because no matter what's going on in the world, I honestly believe that love was the answer. It's always the answer, and like you said, the things on a national level, these big problems, you know, you watch the news, you get pissed off, and the only thing you're doing is the circle around you, you're giving off negative vibrations and frequencies, and it's not helping anybody out, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm big on also, man, just turning off the news, turn off the crap,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. The news I choose to watch tends to be more like stuff going on in India or Yemen or like something like that, like things that I think, because we don't, especially in this country, most people don't give a wild crap what goes on past the borders of this nation,
That is
past the
true.
borders of their state recently. And I think that's part of the problem. I think that part of what's made this country so bizarre is our isolation. Like the fact that we only speak one language, which is something that I've taken into myself to try to change recently. Ever since the pandemic started, I've made it a point to try to learn Russian. I've been doing that for the
That's
past
cool.
2 years.
Hell yeah, man. That's freaking cool.
And it was an attempt just to expand that thought, because if you want to talk about expanding your mind, learning another language literally does just that. It gives you a whole new set of perceptions to be able to use the real world from, because words mean so much. The
Yeah.
way we use words, communication means so much, and every language communicates differently
Right.
and gives you a different perspective, gives you a perspective beyond what your soul language has given you. And like even the little Russian I know, the perception is different. The words that they have, though they mean the same things or an equivalent in English, mean different things, different concepts, different ways to view the world. It's hard to describe, but like the Russian word for here means something different. It doesn't just mean like a location. It's a different, it's like a concept. And that's really what that language does. It speaks in a lot of concepts. And like I've have Russians that I speak to that are learning English for the same reasons that I am. And they talk about how English is capable of being more specific than any other language they've ever encountered, that we can describe something to such intense detail that no other language really has that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because it makes you wonder, because all hypnosis is just words for the most part.
Right.
And so what does that mean for other people? What does that mean for other languages? Because I know other hypnotists that work in Japanese and Dutch and all of these things, and I find that concept fascinating, because like hypnosis means a very specific thing to me. I have very strong word associations with what I use to be able to induce these states in people. And that's all completely out of the door when you're talking about working with someone from a different language. And it's also interesting because I have clients that I work with that English is not their first language, but I'm still able to create the hypnotic state in them. It's just,
Even though they
it's
don't
wild to me.
understand you. That's what I was going to ask you. Like, can somebody like say, I don't understand Russian, but could a Russian hypnotherapist, you know, put me
If
in a trance and help me, you know, unlock
unless
something?
you
Or
understand the words, no.
okay.
One of the things that's useful that I thought was entertaining, that I did an experiment with a peer, is that hypnosis, the primary ingredient to create hypnosis is overload. Specifically, we call it an overload of message units. It can be sight, sound, smell, anything, whatever have you. But if your mind has to process too many of these message units, it drops your critical filter. And I did an experiment with one of my peers that she was from, it wasn't Russia, but it's someplace that spoke Russian, one of the stands. And I in hypnosis switched languages back and forth, and that overloaded her way faster, because she had to switch tracks in her mind to understand each individual thing back and forth, and it just worked to go faster. You have to understand the meaning of the words for them to work hypnotically.
Interesting. I know
And
sometimes when I'm listening to like Viking music, I guess I like to
well,
listen to like
yeah.
Viking music, but I don't know what they're saying, but I like it.
Well, no, I know what you mean. I listen to a lot of music and languages
Yeah.
I don't understand, and the emotion is still able to be conveyed. There's a fascinating experiment that I saw where we went to this intensely remote tribe that had very, very, very little music. Like their music was still rudimentary. And we showed them like classical music, rock music. And on the sad songs, they still felt sad. On like the upbeat rock music, they felt energized. So even though these people had never even heard a guitar before, had never heard a horn or a string instrument ever in their life, they felt the same emotion that the song was meant to convey, which speaks to something interesting. Why does the certain key range of notes done in a certain pattern universally influence sadness or influence inspiration? And that's again one of the, even if you don't understand the language, to understand another country's music is the next best thing. uh like I listen to a lot of like Russian folk music, even though I don't understand a lot of the words behind it. And you understand a lot of what they're coming from just from the song itself. And you could do that with many, many other languages and musics and cultures. And I think it's very important that we look past where we are, our one culture, our one language, and to look at what it means to be someone else, what it means to be human somewhere else, because it means such a vastly different thing no matter where you are, that we're all so incredibly different but the exact same at the same time, that it doesn't matter what culture someone comes from. And this is a point that all of humanity needs to understand. We all have the same experiences, and it's it's somewhat somewhat of a controversial person to quote right now, but I don't care. But Dave Chappelle said something in his last infamous now comedy special that really made a lot of sense and really spoke to me. And that was, we don't need to understand other people. We just need to accept that they're having a human experience. There, because you will never understand someone else. You can't. You cannot have their experiences. You cannot have their life. You will never ever understand another human being, not fully. All you can do is simply just accept that they're a human with experiences and just as much credibility as you have. And that's it. There is no, oh, I don't get why they think or look or act like that. You don't have to. That's not your job. Your job is to simply accept them as a person and attempt to communicate with them on that level. Now, is everyone that you meet able to be communicated with? Not really. Some people, especially now, are very stuck in their ways.
For sure.
Like, and that's kind of the the problem that has really come up, or well, that among many things, but we cannot communicate anymore. That we have now drawn lines in the sand, and there is nothing else.
And to me, that seems like that has been done by design,
Oh, absolutely.
intentionally by design, classic divide and conquer
Yeah, very much
technique,
so.
And so, what do you think about, what's your conclusion for that? Do you think we are headed more in a direction where people are, waking up, learning to break these lines, or do you,
No,
or are you more, like,
I I think we
prepare
are
the
coming.
underground bunker?
I think we are approaching a very, very difficult time in humanity. I saw something once. I think it was just a piece of graffiti on a wall that was new change is being born. Now is the time of monsters. And we are changing. We are approaching a time that we can change, but it's going to be a very painful period. And this is one of the things, because I have people come to me with this as a concern for their hypnotherapy, this mindset that it's very hard to be positive now. And I firmly believe that the coming years are going to be difficult. They're going to be strange. They're going to be unusual to deal with. And the only thing we can do is help each other, is foster a new mindset. And because I firmly believe what it's been set forward now isn't going to be changed. What's going on with the climate, what's going on with society, it has reached well past a tipping point. We can't talk about how to prevent these things anymore. We can only talk about how we move forward and what we become on the other side of it.
For sure.
And that's there that I think about that damn graffiti so many times, that there a new reality is being born, a new age is being born, and now is the time of monsters. Now is the time that there are, and it's not just physical monsters, it's the monsters of our past, it's the monsters of our decisions, it's all of these things. And what do you do with that? What do you do about that? How do you acknowledge those facts and not lose hope?
Right. I think a lot of it is to do with the inner self, man. Not to,
Yeah.
I know I keep cutting you off. I apologize.
No, you're fine, man.
But one thing I noticed with the year 2020, especially, is a lot of people, I think redirected what was important to them, and they were in a lot of ways were faced to make a decision, either to continue old patterns and negative karmic cycles, or level up and start to take back your.
Well, you said it. You said the word cycles. And we had been, so many of the people in this country had been in this cycle, this constant cycle of living paycheck to paycheck in a miserable job. And every one of them, every person has a thing that you can ask them, hey, what would you really want to do if you could do anything? Oh, whatever have you, but I've got my job and all of this and I can't really do it. Well, now you don't. Now you have no job, no obligation. The cycle got broken. And now that's what you see, all of these people, myself included, who have taken this time to discover where their happiness lies. 100%. That it's not about the rat race and making your paycheck. It's about what makes you happy, what fulfills you. And they're even seeing this in China. In China, there's a huge movement called the lie flat movement. And it's that people aren't quitting their jobs, they're just not showing aspiration. That in Chinese culture, there was this push to always have more, be greater, be more, work to get all of this stuff. And this whole generation now don't want to. They're still going to their jobs, they're still making their money and paying their bills, but they're just hanging out. They're using their free time to lie flat and not to pursue these endless goals for an unknown reason. They're just finding what speaks to them. And that's what we see in here too.
And that could be a double-edged sword, on the taxpayer's dime, but I think people have come to have this realization, though, that family should come first before
what's important, what's actually important.
Absolutely, man. Not working 60, 70, 80 hours a week,
And I have so many clients that when this all happened, they had that revelation that that this is what they want to do, this is where they want to go, that there's no reason not to pursue your dreams right now, because what else are you doing? So you might as well take that shot. Like, you never know. And so many people took that shot and it succeeded. And some people, like myself, didn't even know they had a shot, didn't even know what that was going to be. Like I said, I had never, the only knowledge I had of hypnosis previous to attending my school was a book on hypnosis from 1907.
Holy smokes. That's awesome.
Which is exactly as wacky as you would think it is.
That is so cool.
And I've gone back and read it now, and like there's some good stuff in there, and there is some outright wacky stuff in there. But I kind of came to this fresh. I didn't even know that my calling was supposed to be this. I had zero experience with it.
Right.
Like previous to everything going wrong, I kind of wanted to be a magician. Like I kind of wanted to find a way to just be a street magician. That sounded like fun.
That's where I'm at, dude.
Yeah, and I love street magic. I love that close up kind of messing with people's perceptions. And I still have a theory that you can use a good card trick as a hypnotic induction, because it completely shocks the system.
It really does, man.
Yeah, because even to this day, even if I know how a trick is done, like if step by step, to see it done well, it's no less entertaining for me, and it's no less shocking.
I know like 2 card tricks, and one thing I've learned, I'm a very amateur beginner wannabe magician, but one thing I've learned so far is that it's about 25% sleight of hand, knowing what you're doing with the cards, and about 75% just communication, talking,
So
building the show. And that really is it's 75% of the trick, it's in itself.
I'm going to show you something now that's going to be kind of entertaining.
Nick,
I gotta get going.
Okay, Nick is leaving us for the show.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Nick. I'll see you around.
I'm gonna watch this again.
Feel free. So kind of to close things out here, I've got an interesting, because I said I've got a trick that doesn't require cards. This kind of speaks to communication. So how many suits are there in a deck of cards?
52.
Suits?
Oh, suits. I'm sorry, 4.
4.
Yeah.
And of those suits, being the hearts, the clubs, the diamonds, and the spades, name 2.
Diamonds, hearts, and spades. Clubs and diamonds.
Clubs and diamonds. So that leaves the hearts and the spades. Of the hearts and the spades, pick one.
Spades.
Spades, which leaves
The hearts.
the hearts. Correct. Of the royal suits of cards, being the jack, the queen, the king, and the ace, name 2.
Queen and jack.
Queen and jack. And so of the queen and the jack, name 1.
Queen.
Which leaves
The jack. No, dude. No way. Holy smokes. I don't know how you did that, dude, but my mind is blown.
That is a good example of reductive choice. It doesn't matter what you picked. If you would have said the hearts, you would have said, we'll go with hearts, not what does that leave? It doesn't matter what I write down on that pad. It is guiding you to that decision. And that's all hypnosis is, guiding you to that decision. So that's my fun little trick that doesn't even need a deck of cards.
That was cool, man. I freaking love that. That was wild.
That was taught to me by a random carny.
that is so cool.
Yeah.
I bet you it blows people's minds every single time too.
It still blows my mind. And
It's
that was my
wild.
concern with learning magic is, man, is this going to ruin this for me? And it didn't. Like, it did the exact opposite. It doesn't matter if I know how a trick's done. I still feel that excitement. I still feel that joy at seeing that trick because it looked cool. It still feels like magic. even though I know how to do it.
All right, it does, man. That's I'm gonna have to try that. I'm gonna rewatch this after this show.
Oh yeah, it's very easy to learn. It's anyone listening, it's a great trick to mess with someone, because I just normally just write a card on my hand.
Mhm.
I find it's more effective to do without a deck of cards, because if you start involving a deck of cards, people think you pulled some sleight of hand and produced
Right.
whatever card. No, write that on their hand, write it on their hand.
That's
Like,
wild.
and there's so many ways that, because what I loved about magic was the presentation, because magic is 10-20% the sleight itself, as you said, and the rest is presentation, it's patter, it's buildup, it's the show. And it's engaging that involvement, it's causing that, in a way it's inducing that trance, because you get people involved with it. And I'm still convinced, knowing what I know about trance, that there is a level of trance involved in magic. How else does sleight of hand work? And like, I've done like uh just snap cuts and things like that in front of someone's face, literally that far from their face.
I'm not sure
And
what a
like,
snap cut is, but a
oh,
guy at work did one on me before I left today, and he's like, I have a deck of cards right here, and he basically held the deck like this. He said, "Tell me when to stop," and so I said, "Stop," and he's just pulled it out, and he said, "Okay, look at your card." And he pulled out the bottom card, which I didn't see it. And I looked at it. He's like, "All right, shuffle it up." I shuffle it all up, whatever. And he flips it over and he picks out my card. I was like, "How'd you do that?" And it was literally right in front of me, you know?
well, like, I actually have a deck of cards that's a hypnotic
Oh,
thing.
nice.
Like, here's one. Tell me when to stop on the Queen of Diamonds.
Stop.
Right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Impressive.
And that's all it is. It's Jack of Hearts. You just snap it off the top. It's just a small
Interesting.
sleight.
That's
Yeah. And I was one of those weirdos that for years, because I didn't have anything to do, I just sat there with a deck of cards and a classic magic book. It was Jean Hugard, I think, is who I really started paying attention to. And I just sat there and I worked through the book from basic shuffles all the way to advanced sleights. And I just worked through the book until I could master this one sleight, this one thing, just keep going. And that gave me a really solid foundation for for every technique that I have. I think it's called The Royal Road to Card Magic. This is the book that I started with. And it's just, there's so many foundational things that I learned from that book, that even when I see a trick that I don't even know, I'm like, oh, I know how that's done. Like, it's just a combination of these things, like, or that's just this one thing.
mm-hmm.
That one little snap cut I showed you, you can just turn that into like 10 different routines. Just that one cut. It's not even a trick. It's just a cut. And it's all in the presentation. It's all just that. It's all in the journey that you take people. It's why that even a magician will find entertainment from another magician, because it's that story. It's that journey that you take people on. And I'm all about this concept of the inner child, that inside of all of us, there's still like that 8-year-old child, that we all kind of keep that part of us. And
there's certain things that seems like we hold on to. Like for me,
we hold
it's
on
like
a lot.
For me, man, it's Star Wars. Like Star Wars is one that kind of keeps me connected to like my inner child, you know?
Yeah. And it's important that we keep those things, that remind us of childhood. And magic is one of those things for so many people, that even for that instant, we feel that fascination that we felt as a child at seeing something amazing. It's why, like, I love watching the faces of people in an audience of a magic show, because they all look so happy, because it's one of the few times in life we feel delight. We feel like children again. We know what we saw was a trick logically,
but
but
we can't figure it out.
We can't figure it out. And that sure as hell looked like magic to us. There's this trick that it's one of the few tricks I learned from YouTube. It's this trick that fooled Winston Churchill. And basically the way it looks is you have someone shuffle a deck of cards and then lay out the decks or the cards in 4 different rows, and when they flip them all up, it's all separated into black and red. Like,
okay, I think I've seen one of those, and I got lost like a minute in, and I was like, yeah, this is intermediate level.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I honestly recommend buy that book, The Royal Road to Card Magic, because it's made as a beginner, and it just learn everything from the ground up, all the shuffles, all the cuts, and then it begins to teach you gradually more and more difficult tricks.
Let me write it down real quick. What'd you say it's called?
The Royal Road to Card Magic. And basically anything that Jean Hugard wrote is fantastic. And it's all written from a way that's pretty easy to understand. And it's one of those things I'll still do with a deck. Guys, I have decks of cards just in my desk as a means of relaxation. I'll sit there and do various cuts and shuffles just because that's what my hands naturally do with cards now. Like,
That's
I could
awesome.
I could never go to Vegas. I could never ever go to Vegas because anytime you put a card in my hand, I instantly start doing like disappears on it and things like that, just because that's what my hands are trained to do when you have a card. They do not like that shit in Vegas.
Really?
Oh no, they don't want people that know sleight of hand at the card tables. Because
interesting.
Because if you can do like a disappear or something like that, you could probably palm a card. You can probably make a card appear. You might have a loaded deck somewhere on your person that you're just pulling aces from.
That is, I mean, I never thought of that before.
Yeah.
My thing has been YouTubing cardistry, and I love the art.
Artistry is amazing.
It is amazing.
Is incredible. I can't do it, partially because I've got a messed up hand.
Oh, okay.
But I think that is one of the most fascinating things. Like, there are people that can do incredibly complex things just with cards, and the best I can pull off is like a 4-part cut. Like, that's about it.
Right.
Like,
and that's where I'm at, is like was practicing the Sybil cut. I'm not sure if you know what that is or not.
Oh yeah.
I started that last week, and I was like, what the hell? I sat there for 4 hours straight, dude, watching the tutorial videos. And finally I figured it out, like how the movement's supposed to go. So then it became down to like muscle memory. And that's still where I'm at, is trying to just get faster at doing it, but someday, hopefully I would like to be, I don't even want to say hopefully, and
honestly, you don't need to have that much knowledge.
No.
One of the tips I found in one of those books, because all the books I read for like from the 40s and stuff, that's the era of magic I like. They said that you don't need to know 100 tricks. You need to know like 5 really, really, really well. And that's it. That find 5 tricks that you absolutely love and just practice the crap out of those until you get mastery of them. Because a card trick done well is way more impressive than 5 done okay, than 20 done okay. There's a magician named Shin Lim who does amazing things with sleight of hand. There's a Penn and Teller show. I love Penn and Teller, who they did the show called Fool Us. And if you haven't seen that show, it's amazing. They just have various magicians come on and try to fool Penn and Teller. And it's some of the tricks they show are stunning, absolutely stunning. And sometimes they do fool those two. And they're technical magicians. They know if they can't do the trick, they know the idea behind it. They've literally written books on the subject. And it's fascinating to see what people do with varying things. I've seen people do a trick where you have people have more cards show up in their hand than they thought they had, doing it with slices of cheese. And like, that's the fascinating thing to me that really comes with learning the fundamentals of card magic. Is it becomes not just the card. You understand the principles of it, and you can just start making up tricks like based upon the techniques you already know.
There's one I would really like to know how it's done, and I think it's a David Blaine trick, but he was in I want to say Han Solo, obviously. Harrison Ford. Man, I was really struggling with that for a second. But he was in Harrison Ford's house, and he told him to pick a card, any card. He picked a card, and he put it back in the deck, and it was gone. It was in a watermelon that was next on his counter. It was like inside the watermelon.
Oh, I know how to do that.
Oh, you do? Because that blew my mind. I was like,
it's a variation of the card in orange trick. And I'm trying to think of what book I have that actually talks about it. I've got a wild book that talks about how to like do the bullet catch trick, how to do the card in orange, all the like those really visual tricks. And I think it's the Encyclopedia of Card Magic.
Okay.
I'll have to look at my bookshelf.
You ever watch that movie, The Prestige?
Oh yeah,
that's a good one. I just watched that not that long ago, and that's one of my favorite magic movies, I think.
The bullet catch is actually really easy to do, so long as you use a flintlock, like in that movie.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be the next one I practice.
Honestly, it's not difficult
in
the slightest, and it's not even dangerous when you
when it's done right.
When it's done right, well, when it's done right, you have the ball in your hand.
Right.
You know for a fact there is not a bullet in that gun unless the other person wants to sleight of hand you back and throw a bullet in that gun.
Right.
I'm pretty sure is what happened in The Prestige. But
I know, yeah, that is what happened. He got his hand blown off.
Yep.
Oh man, that's awesome.
But yeah, that's it's one of those things that I really encourage people to learn. Like, card magic is a truly fun thing, and it doesn't kill the magic for you at all. Like, at least speaking for myself, it only enhances it. Like, it becomes more impressive to know how to do something and see it done well. Like, it's
absolutely, dude.
It's why magicians are all friends with other magicians. Like, that's just the way it goes.
I feel like card tricks and magic, I feel like it's one of those things where you have to at least learn one. Learn one card trick, just like whistling a tune. Learn to whistle one tune.
Exactly. Everyone needs to know that one card trick.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Have that one thing to pull out of the bar. Well, man, it's been great talking to you. I need to get going again.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know you have an appointment, but I want you to have the opportunity real quick to let the audience know where they can find your stuff, where they can find you, all the goods, man.
So, as I said, my company name is Twin Ravens Hypnotherapy and Research. You just find us online at twinravens.org. That's the easiest way to get a hold of us. I keep all of my interviews on that site. You can find us online on all of the usual suspects, just at Twin Ravens Hypno. And you can even find us on some professional sites if you just search for Twin Ravens Hypnotherapy. But any questions anyone has about anything I've said, about wanting to work with me, anything at all, just reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to talk.
And also there's, I know we didn't get into it to talk about too much, but under the links section of your web page there's like a couple tests. I took them.
Yes. There is a suggestibility test, the Enp system that I spoke about. There is a link to my school that is that test to kind of show you where you land on that. And if you want to ask questions about the results that you have, just shoot me an email. I'll gladly tell you a little bit more about what that means.
Heck yeah, man. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, dude. And I will be in contact with you after we're done recording, and, enjoy.
Good deal, man. Well, it was nice meeting you. Nice meeting you, buddy.
Yeah. Sorry you had to take off. The weather is bad, man. I'll tell you what, we have a bad winter storm coming through right now. So the roads are.
I heard about that.
Yeah.
Well, y'all be safe.
All right, man.
And I'll talk to you later, man.
All right. We'll see you.